What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, quarantine edition number 10, 9, somewhere up there. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my trusty co-host who always outwits, outlasts, and outplays the other podcasters, Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how you doing, man?
Saved all my fire tokens for this moment, man. We're here. Survivor Season 40 over.
Getting those three advantages. Just like Natalie, you're back in the game, dog. So we're gonna be talking quite a few things this week. We got some music. We obviously have some TV, maybe a movie. We'll see how we feel for you here at the end. But before we get going, hit that subscribe if you're on YouTube. So that's youtube.com/nostalgiapod. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to find the podcast any way you want to, and especially iTunes follows, subscriptions, and reviews really help. Follow us on Twitter at nostalgiapod. Dave, as you mentioned, Survivor Season 40, Winners at War. You tuned back in for the first time in how long for this?
So I had to do some digging to figure that out exactly. I think it's been about 10 years. I think I stopped watching around 2009, 2010, around there. And it was basically just out of my mind until I want to say maybe last year, 2019, when there's some controversy and ethical questions started popping up with the show, and it got back on my radar, and I heard about the all winners season, and then I heard that people I remembered were returning, and that piqued my interest, and here we are.
Here
it was pretty good. I'm happy to be back.
Well, I'm glad that you're back too, man, because this was a hell of a season. I had tuned into Survivor very early on, like right when it first began, but then kind of tuned out when we got to college. But I tuned back in for I think the last 5 or 6 seasons. So really, as the game has evolved with hidden immunity idols on the island, obviously. They introduced fire tokens, and extinction was a one-time thing that they then brought back for this season. So this season they brought back 20 past winners, one of the most competitive seasons of reality TV I think I've ever seen. And man, what was I think so fantastic about this show is that, well, one, there's just so much strategy at play constantly within this season 40 that they almost just didn't have enough time to show all the moving parts every time, leaving I think so much to be desired for just the other things going on the island. Like I know we've talked about this, but like just seeing like their life outside of the strategy of the game. But it was such a strategy packed season that it was quite a show. What did you like about the season? What were you glad that you tuned in for?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's just the top level gameplay, the strategy of it all. I think in past seasons, the disparity in like Survivor IQ can sometimes lead to landslide wins, like Kim's past win. So I've been told. But yeah, in this case, it was. I feel like mistakes were magnified. Think of people like Danny or Adam, and then successful strategy actually was need to be better than normal to actually make it in season 40. So it's pretty nuts. But yeah, the whole like we need 90-minute episodes, or at least throw up a lot more on like CBS All Access or something. That became pretty obvious because like there was no reward challenges really, and no like surviving. Like when I think I first started with Africa or Australia, I forget. And back then, you would see a lot of like the fishing and the surviving and the cooking and usually a lot of the misery that comes with these people losing tons of weight and starving in the jungle somewhere for a month. Yeah. And like we just didn't get any of that at all. It was just lots of strategy, and I like seeing that too. But I feel like there's a whole other part of the game, maybe the more traditional angle of it that we knew still existed and happened, but just wasn't actually shown to us. So wish we could have got more of that.
The things that has really evolved about Survivor, and that was specifically a major part of this season, is the strategy came into play at Tribal Council. Now, when Survivor first started, it was like everybody went into Tribal Council with a plan, and it was kind of like playing poker in a sense, where you were like, you don't really show your hand, you just kind of have to try to bluff the other person and then pull off moves that way. But over the last couple seasons, and it really was prominent in this season, is how much the strategy really was like, this is what the plan is going into Tribal Council, but who knows what's going to be said or what people are reading or what little nuances they're picking up in someone's inflection that they're like, oh, there's something going on here.
Yeah, totally. Are you a fan of the whole live Tribal Council thing where it gets really hectic and people are out of their seats and whispering and it's just a never-ending loop for like 5 minutes? Do you like that? Do you wish they had like more restrictions, or did you just like the anarchy?
I love the anarchy because I think one of the things about the Survivor early seasons is when there was a plan in place and you just kind of knew what was going to come. It made the end of the show very anticlimactic, like especially when there was a really strong alliance that really wasn't willing to budge. You'd go into Tribal Council and you'd basically be like, after the immunity, you know what's happening. But now you go into Tribal Council and things can shift. Who won this season? Spoiler alert for anyone that's watching this review and doesn't know who won. Tony in several Tribal Councils was actually calling shots within the Tribal Council, and how that played out to the jury, which having the jury present for pretty much the whole season with the Extinction Island being a part of it was also a very interesting new aspect to it. I thought was just another level of gameplay that they added of how you're building your resume, how you're presenting yourself throughout the entire game to the people who are going to be casting that vote at the end. Did you like it though?
Yeah, sure, I guess. At times I felt like Denise a little bit though. Like, can we just can you make all your schemes and get on with it? You know, like I get the need to reconvene with your allies and stuff, but yeah, the edge being there and having everyone in the game actually mattering at the end is pretty cool, I guess. I don't think I really like the edge twist itself though. I think I could like it more if fire tokens were also tweaked. You know, like the whole survivor economy has been added, but it just seemed like there was a sense of these will really matter at the end. And then after watching this season, you think about Sandra giving up a immunity idol for one token, like Ethan nearly killing himself on the edge for one token, like for what, you know? And then Natalie being able to get all those advantages because she had been on the edge the longest and have idols. Meanwhile, people that haven't actually gotten voted out didn't have the ability to just buy idols. Like, I don't know. I just felt like it was a little skewed in terms of like fairness, but Natalie didn't win anyway, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah, it's hard. So his name was Chris Underwood, won after coming back from Extinction a couple seasons back. I think that was season 38, so 2 seasons before. And watching that season, I actually felt very disappointed with him coming in and winning. And I get like, okay, so he had to survive on this island, win his way back in, and then somehow navigate no alliances and coming into this totally new voting block, basically. But it also feels a little bit cheap when so much of the show is following the people who are in the game, and then someone who's been out of the game literally from the first night comes in and makes it down to the final 3. I can understand, I think, how some people feel a little bit frustrated by that. And I think that is an aspect of the game maybe they need to tweak when they send people back in from Extinction, and when they cut that off. I think that can maybe allow someone like that to build their resume a bit. I was actually surprised that Michelle didn't get any votes and Natalie got all of her votes, because I know Michelle was kind of on the bottom the whole time, but often I noticed that people reward that kind of survival tactic where, you know, you're kind of just getting by and just keeping the target off of you in a sense, but people really seem to benefit or really give Natalie credit for how much work she put in on Extinction to get back in the game and shake things up.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking of like, there's been past champions that, you know, not the most deserving winner, but usually they were part of like the majority alliance and still had a pretty comfortable ride to the end. Think of like Amber and Survivor All Stars or something. And yeah Michelle kind of just finessing the whole time. When she threw her stat out about I was at like was it 15 of 19 tribal councils or whatever it was, and I was like that's pretty daunting. And considering she really didn't have an alliance the whole time, um, it's a good resume. It just doesn't quite stack up to Tony. And I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks, so had lots of people, but just the inability of damn near everyone to see Tony as the threat that he was just baffling to us. Like the one person who really saw it out and got a lot of points in my book was Kim. And Kim had a really good effort, and she just got snuffed out and killed off by Tony. But like Sarah was in the finale, right? She was like, I don't know why they see this, and like she had a really good speech about gender bias in Survivor, which is I think a talking point that's we've had for a while, and it was good to really have that out in the open. But I think you have to remember that Tony was showing the jury in tribal council, calling out, "Hey, Ben, don't play your idol. We got this." Like he was visibly dictating the shots, whether he was in full command of that alliance or not. So yeah, Tony was pretty much the perceived threat. Like when Natalie's like spilling the tea when she comes back, and Sarah's all confused, I was just very surprised. And like, yes, like maybe that's the edit we were getting. Like we have much more perspective, I guess, than people actually there in the moment. But I just found it baffling basically the whole time. And you think of people like Ben and especially Nick and even Denise, who had chances to really flip it up and get rid of Tony, and they just tried to ride with Tony as long as they could until they couldn't anymore. And it just became a self-fulfilling prophecy, man. Like he lost some immunities right at the end. There was a chance, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah. It was the moment when Tony was calling those shots, and they panned to Boston Rob, or they cut to Boston Rob, and he goes, "Man, Tony is a don in this game," or he said something along those lines.
The boss,
Tony's
I think he said
this, and I was like, if Boston Rob, if Tony's sitting there making the calling shots, and you have Boston Rob, who probably is the most respected player in the jury at that point since Sandra had gone home, saying that, that he's going to be the winner at the end. So to not be somehow making a play for him is almost like, and I think this also speaks to the game Tony played, where he did make everybody feel like he was their friend, and he really wanted to go to the final, take me to final three. And then Jeremy was like, "What about me?" And like they all kind of were like calling him out. But good on Tony for making them all feel that safe, and like he was actually there for them that way. I was really impressed with Tony. I didn't watch his season, so to see him come in and build a spy nest and be kind of running all these aspects of the game and really snuffing things out, like even how he knew or had an inkling that Natalie had an idol, and Sarah was kind of like calling the shot. No, she doesn't trust me on this. Like, I was just really impressed with how tuned in he was this season, how much work he put in. He definitely deserved the win.
Yeah, definitely.
I wanted to ask you, who did you come in rooting for this season?
Yeah, I was rooting for the people that I was familiar with from the past. So like Rob, Parvati, and then there's even people that like I watched Yul and Danny's seasons. I looked it up. I was looking up like storylines and things that happened. I remember stuff, but I didn't actually really remember them that much. I didn't actually really know Sandra from her first win. I didn't really remember her, and I didn't see her legend get grown when she won the second time. But yeah, I was just rooting for the older people. I just found like they had more narratives and stuff. And I wasn't familiar with Tyson, but he seems pretty cool too, and everyone seems to like him. So yeah, just rooting for the older people in general. Once like they got snuffed out, I just kind of like went with the flow and took the underdogs and stuff. So I started rooting for Jeremy and Kim and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it was a little deflating to see like Ethan go real fast, who I also watched, and then Rob and Parv and all that. So I think a lot of people felt that. But maybe that's why the edge was actually good for this season, because you got more of those moments with people that you had a resisting relationship with already.
Yeah, and I think they actually, I agree. I was rooting for Boston Rob, my number one guy. And I really felt like he had a good showing for going out pretty early. But I was definitely also rooting for Wendell, who kind of went out early. He had a really poor showing in the season. But the final episode, on top of being this 3-hour blowout episode with all these twist turns and really exciting gameplay, I was really impressed with what they did after the return challenge, where Jeff was going around and talking to Rob and all the people who are probably not going to be coming back to the show, and really getting um, their perspective on what Survivor has meant to them. Hearing Ethan talk about how some of the money that Survivor had donated actually funded research that found the medication that helped cure his blood cancer is just amazing stuff. And like, I found myself really moved by the way that they edited it, put that together.
Mm-hmm.
When Rob and Amber were talking, I just was like, man, I stand this couple. Like, Survivor really has this way of being just this show that I think encompasses uh, really good reality TV where there's actual like strategy, gameplay. It's not just like that typical Bachelor bullshit, but then there's also the human aspect that I think you get in this sort of show more than you do in those sort of like Bachelor shows where the sob story is almost like you have to have one to get by. Do you find yourself connecting with that aspect of the show as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, especially in this case, because we already had a relationship with a lot of those characters, you really felt, felt their message, and it did land. I was just thinking, like, how many of these, this big cast, this stacked all-star cast of winners, how many of them do you think had the potential to actually come back? Like, there's a lot we can write off, right? I think Sandra's done, Rob's done, Amber's done, Parv's done. Seems
Sandra
like Tyson
was done this season.
Yeah, Tyson's probably done. Jeremy, Ethan for sure. Yule probably. Like a lot of legends. Danny, they're probably all gone, never come back. So who do you think has the potential to actually return to this show? I mean, like, a lot of recent winners were here, so like, they're probably who you'd pick. But
yeah, I think the three or four that I think are definitely we're going to be seeing again are Wendell, Ben, Nick, and Michelle, I would say. And Natalie, I think if she wants to continue doing this, I mean, she's really into CrossFit, so she's definitely going to be in the shape to be competitive, or at least continue to be in the mix. But I wonder if her making it down to these final three and being she's hasn't been on the show for 6 years. She's season 29, so 5.5, 6 years. They might say that they want to start bringing in some new blood. But yeah, those seem like the three. Did you like Adam? Because Adam won season 33, so he's fairly recent, but I just could not connect with him. I found him actually quite annoying a lot of the season, so I kind of hope he doesn't come back, but he's up there too, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely up there, just, given age. It's funny, Wendell's actually a lot older than I thought. He's like in his mid-30s, but Adam's only in his late 20s. Yeah, Adam's someone who his just strategy, his angles seem to not really work from the jump. And again, we're just trusting the edit we get, but he, for someone who was supposed to be more tactical and like a Survivor savant from his winning season, so I've been told, that didn't really come across this time. And like the whole like feuding with Ben in general was just like at the source of annoying feuds. Like, I didn't care about his feud with Adam, nor did I care about his feud with Jeremy. But yeah, Adam, if he was to get back to that more basic stuff, I feel like he kind of represents like a modern, right now, Survivor fan, Survivor champ. So yeah, I'd be open to it, I guess, but didn't really care for him this time.
Yeah. I think Sarah is another person that we could see come back. She also made it to final three, or final four, I guess it is. And she's season 34, so she's fairly new too. And I think she'll probably want to establish herself separate from Tony after seeing the way that the season was edited. So, and she had a really strong moment, like you talked about in one of the last tribals, talking about the gender bias on the show. And I think Jeff handled that pretty well, giving her the Lucina send off.
Yes.
So some really good moments. I can see them coming back. Do you expect yourself to be tuned into Survivor more moving forward?
Yeah, I think so. I've come to appreciate it as like real life, like fantasy sports, and I really like that. So yeah, I think it's just really fun, and it's definitely the most engaging reality TV I've ever seen. And like you said, it's not just the trashy, turn your brain off stuff you can really connect with. And especially if they can somehow give us the other traditional elements of, I just want to see these people surviving. I want to see someone like cut themselves with their flint and steel. I want to see all that bullshit too. So if we can get that, yeah, I'll be totally in. And I'm just curious, like Jeff says it at the end of the finale, they're committed to season 41 in this fall. They're sticking to their schedule. They were supposed to shoot this season, I believe in March, and they right before they were starting to go, everything started shutting down. So of course it hasn't happened. That would have been in Fiji, which is like their home base at this point. But now there's some talk about season 41 maybe being in the States. I see Survivor Wild West being thrown out there. Uh, I'm down with that in general, just because it seems to be a switch up. It was cool the early days too, when there were like distinct locales, right?
Yep.
Before the show started settling in and just being somewhere in the Pacific Islands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that would be a great decision, and just giving something different. Um, I I don't think Survivor has really made a misstep, and even in terms of the things I don't think worked as well, like the fire tokens or the extinction, it all adds an interesting element. So I think whatever they add would just add another factor to that gameplay. Just as we wrap up, I want to just throw it out there. So Sandra and Rob, definitely up there on the Survivor Mount Rushmore. Probably got to have Tony now. Do you have anybody that would definitely be up there for 4?
Yeah, I mean, what's that? Tony, Sandra, 2-time champs, the only two, obvious. Rob, a winner and a runner-up.
Yeah, de facto 2-time champ.
Right, general status about him. I've seen some people saying that Rob's good but overrated, which I think is kind of an interesting case if you want to make it. Anyway, so at this point, it's just people I haven't totally watched. Like, people really have Tyson up there.
Yeah. Tyson, Parvati.
I can't really speak to a lot of the GOAT talk because I haven't seen enough of the show in the past decade.
Yeah, I guess maybe if you're going just straight Mount Rushmore theory, maybe you'd have Richard Hatch up there, only because he was the season 1 winner and kind of probably one of the most famous winners that they've ever had. Just that the show was
like 120 million people watched that finale of the first season, like insane,
something like that. But I think Natalie might have a case too, coming in being a runner-up on Winners at War. After that, I mean, there's some people in the discussion. So if you are a Survivor fan, you're watching this, tell us who would be on your Mount Rushmore. I want to know what the right answer is. So.
I actually like to think about too, like, who are the best non-winners? Like, they did Survivor Second Chance a few years back with people that didn't win but played before. And I think of people like Russell Hantz, was it? Who's very unpopular but noted tactician, and people
Rupert,
like a coach, and Rupert, really popular. Siri, right? Like, there's a lot of good ones too. So it's a fun thing to talk about too, because it's kind of like sports, right? Like, you can make the case for a bunch of different people once you get past like the ring talk. So it's a lot of fun, and that's why the show just endures, because people just they're interested in it.
Definitely.